guys, we're back. Hopefully you can't hear it right now, but we got a window unit for my home office, so it now does not literally scald me to death to be up here anymore. You will probably also notice that the layout for this video is going to be slightly different, and when I say slightly, I mean very different from usual stuff that I have put out in the past. Today is July 7th, 2025. Today is the last day of a veritable 4-day weekend that I have got to enjoy, starting with the 4th of July. Unfortunately, unlike the last time I had a recording binge, which was on my last 4-day weekend a couple weeks back.
Oh, excuse me, gentlemen. I gotta take care of a week back.
Pardon me, how long have you had a week back?
Oh, about a week back.
I have not sat down and recorded any videos during this mini vacation of mine.
Boo! You stink!
And the reason for that is that, unfortunately, as a homeowner, I have land that I need to take care of and a house that I need to keep relatively tidy. So I've been mowing the grass and spraying the weeds in the driveway with Roundup, and I wanted to make sure that this office was clean before I came back and recorded any videos in it. I don't really want to drag on this intro super duper long, so please consult the new graphics at the bottom of the video with regards to what you can do to help support the channel. Every little bit helps. It doesn't matter what you do, just that you do it in the first place. So I really appreciate it. Anyway, what is the topic of today's video? I promised a user by the name Knack Prime
Can do this. I played Knack.
that I would do more Yu-Gi-Oh related content. So that is what this video is going to principally be about. Anyone who is semi or at all aware of the Yu-Gi-Oh community and Yugi tubers at all online knows why I put up a picture of this guy. This is Cimoooooooooo. Cimoooooooooo has been a mainstay of Yugi tubing for pretty much the entire time that I have been interested in Yu-Gi-Oh! Post-Duelist Alliance, when Pendulums kind of got me back into the game. I believe I opined on this particular subtopic all the way back in my original Zefra-focused custom card video. And you can tell how early in the day it is because the Zefra are shining light directly into my face if I do this. So I'm gonna probably try to lean more like this, stay in the center of this quadrant sector of my recording layout. Anyway, 7 years ago, as of the time of recording this video, Cimoooooooooo uploaded a video titled Yu-Gi-Oh! The Best Custom Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. And roughly 27% of the cards that he went over in that video were mine in specific. And I know because I remember I was sitting in the student lounge somewhere on campus while I was in college during some downtime when he posted a tweet on Twitter, now known as X, asking for people's, I don't want to say input, but basically he was asking for the best custom cards that people could think of and or provide him with, which obviously ended up in that video, which I will probably splice clips in here and there to provide context for some of the things that I will say. These cards are not centralized around any particular theme in my collection of custom card machinations, aside from the fact that they were in this Cimoooooooooo video. I am going to go over these in the order that Cimoooooooooo went over them in his video. Also, I hope everybody likes the new layout. I don't know if we're going to see it very often. I really hope I'm wrong about that, but a lot of effort on my part went into making this screen Godzilla Brawler channel distinct. Alright, let me read the card. During your main phase, if your opponent controls more cards than you do, you can activate this card from your hand, and if you activated this card this way, lose 3,000 life points when its effect resolves. Declare one of the following effects. For the rest of the turn after this effect resolves, apply that effect. Effect number 1. Monsters that currently cannot be targeted by card effects and or cannot be targeted for attacks can now both be targeted by card effects and targeted for attacks. Effect number 2. Monsters that currently cannot be destroyed by battle and or cannot be destroyed by card effects can now both be destroyed by battle and by card effects. You can only activate one test of true strength per turn. And just to get ahead of the inevitable comments that this video will receive if it gets any form of attention at all, the comment section under that Cimoooooooooo video had a lot of bona fide geniuses trying to point out the obvious fact that yes, this is a Shadowverse card. When I make custom cards, I'm not an artist. I use AI generated art now, but that didn't exist at the time that I made this card. I just tried to pick pretty looking card arts from artwork that was available on SafeBoru or any of its kindred sites. I must have stumbled upon the treasure trove of Shadowverse card arts on SafeBoru, and the idea that I had for this card already was pre-existent in my mind. I just needed to find an artwork that fit what I was going for, so that's why this is a Shadowverse artwork. So, what are the differences between what I have now and what I had then when Cimoooooooooo went over it?
It might not be good for the current meta, but I think depending on if archetypes come out very similar to stuff like Magispector or Cosmo in the future, something like this would be really cool. I think it'd be kind of nice to have a card that people could tech to counter specific immunity to types of cards.
Okay, first thing worth noting, this card originally did not have an infinite impermanence style activate trap card from the hand activation effect.
So, when this card is activated, apply one of the following effects. Monsters that cannot be targeted by cards or effects this turn can be targeted by cards or effects, or monsters cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects can be destroyed by battle or card effects.
Originally, it was just a regular trap card. I think at the time when I originally wrote the effect, infinite impermanence did not exist yet, and once it came out, I think I took Cimoooooooo's criticisms of how viable it would be.
And I don't know if having it in a trap card is the best thing. I don't think it's exactly the most viable card, but maybe if it was like a quick play spell.
And I incorporated a fixed version of the effect that allows you to do so in the first place. Because he made the very fair point that this wouldn't necessarily be viable in the state that I originally had it. When he originally reviewed it, he was probably correct in that it probably should have been a quick play spell card because it didn't have the alternative activation condition effect. But I made sure to include very specific qualifying statements for the new condition for that alternative activation, because the thought in my head was that this card basically helps nullify some of the immunities that unbreakable boards, quote unquote, had around the time that I made the card.
I think it'd be a lot more viable. It'd be kind of cool depending on certain decks.
Obviously, it's kind of a joke now, but stuff like Cleafort Towers was pretty frustrating to deal with back around 2016. And then Masterpiece, the True Draco Slaying King, also was difficult to deal with. And I just wanted a way to wipe out those things because, as Cimoooooooooo said in his video, I don't think there's any card that really deals with these kinds of blanket effects in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, that being said, I haven't played since the tail end of Master Rule 4, because I remember Master Rule 5 kind of starting off as I was beginning to deal with the incidence and occurrence of my multiple sclerosis condition, and I ended up moving back in with my parents around this area, and there are no game stores or comic book stores within a reasonable distance, so this card may not even really be viable at all anymore. If that's the case, let me know in the comments. As I have said before on these videos, And my absence from the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Requires that those of you who still actively play, fill me in. I will say, I feel like some of the wording on this card deserves to be redone. And the only reason I say that is because the very nature of monsters that are unaffected by the other player's card effects and or their targeting effects would require that these effects affect the player and not the monsters on the field themselves. The best instance / example that I can think of off the top of my head is evenly matched, because evenly matched technically does not affect the monsters themselves. It affects the other player. So if player 1 activates evenly matched, then player 2 has to choose what to banish face down.
And that's the point. You'll have to choose.
Which kind of circumvents / dodges whether or not a monster is affected or unaffected by the opponent's card effects. Okay, this next one, I'm just going to open up by saying was pretty cringe in its original incarnation.
This one's really cool. This one's called the Living Graveyard.
I definitely didn't leave to go downstairs in the middle of this. I don't know what I was in the middle of saying, but the Living Graveyard is a rank 4 Earth Exceed monster, and it's a zombie with 1500 attack and 0 defense. All it requires to summon is 2 level 4 zombies, and I distinctly recall Cimoooooooooo wanting to highlight and talk about that when he went over the Living Graveyard.
But I think what I wanted to pretty much highlight with this card is I feel like I wish we had more cards that were very generic for their type. And what I mean by that is Living Graveyard is a very cool zombie-specific Xyz monster.
Which, again, has artwork from another card game. Which one, I don't know. But I did not come up with the artworks. I just found neat artworks that I thought kind of fit what I was going for online. This card can be treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a zombie monster. If you control Zombie World, you can detach 2 materials from this card. Special summon 1 zombie monster from your graveyard to your field in attack position. If this card has no materials, you can, immediately after this effect resolves, tribute summon 1 level 5 or higher zombie normal monster from your deck, using only this card as tribute. You can only use each effect of the Living Graveyard once per turn. Okay, so this one is a bit special, and I'm not sure if I mean unique or if I mean that kind of special. Let's start with the simple stuff. If you control Zombie World, you can Silent Honor Arc detach 2 Exceed materials from it to Monster Reborn, a zombie monster in face-up attack position. And recall that Zombie World turns everything in both graveyards into zombie types. So you basically get to Monster Reborn anything, with the major restriction being that you have to reborn the given monster in attack position. I don't know in what scenarios you would want to reborn something in defense position, but it's coming back to me. I think this is meant to pretty much allow you straight up to Monster Reborn a Link monster with left and rightward facing Link arrows, because this was made, I believe, during the Master Rule for Zeitgeist, as I previously explained, so that you could clear up some space in your own monster zones. Okay, now for the elephant in the room. When Cimoooooooooo went over this card's effect, it was in a much messier status.
And it kind of goes on from there.
So, unlike Test of True Strength, I'm going to read the original Living Graveyard card verbatim from his video. Cannot be targeted or destroyed while you control Zombie World. I believe I removed that because it's just a generic rank 4 Exceed monster, and it felt kind of superfluous to the overall design philosophy of the card, so that's why I got rid of that. If you control Zombie World, you can detach one material from this card, special summon one zombie monster from either player's graveyard to your field in attack position. Monsters summoned by this effect cannot change their battle positions except by card effects. Again, I believe this effect was a little sloppy in the version in Cimoooooooo's video. If you special summon a monster, it can't change its battle position from the battle position that you special summoned it in unless it is by a card effect. So most of that text that I just read in the original version was completely redundant. If this card has no materials, you can tribute summon one level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck using this card as the full tribute. In addition to your normal summon / set, you can only gain this effect once per turn. You can only activate one the living graveyard effect per turn and only once that turn. So the original intention behind many of the effects of many of the custom cards that I made was to make playable again, not necessarily viable, just playable again, many of the old school Yu-Gi-Oh cards that required tribute summoning in order to get their effects, or otherwise just get them to the field at all. That is why even on the revised card that you are presently looking at, this card basically allows you to tribute summon from the deck, which one of the comments in Cimoooooooo's video pointed out was a sign of the end times. I believe I made several modifications to the kind of effect flow for the living graveyard to kind of make that a natural endpoint of the chain of effects for the card. So you'll notice in this current version that the effect that requires detachment of exceed materials now detaches 2 materials, such that the condition of if this card has no materials is naturally fulfilled by the card's own effect before you decide to use that effect. I think it's generally good card design philosophy to have the effects kind of flow into each other, like step 1, step 2, step 3 sort of a deal. I also clarified that it had to be a level 5 or higher zombie normal monster.
It's totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up.
Which, again, was kind of the philosophy that I had with regards to designing a lot of these old cards, which we will see with the next one, which was take the stuff that you can't even realistically play in anything and beef it up in terms of accessibility to the point where you can actually reasonably make the choice to summon any number of those old cards. I must confess, I don't know why I specifically threw in the normal monster qualifier in there, and barring some hyper-specific broken interactions, I imagine you could just take away the normal monster part and leave it like this. The only examples that I can really think of at this exact moment are things like Dark Dust Spirit. I may have gotten its name wrong, but I'll flash it up on the screen regardless, so you're seeing the actual name and the actual card while I'm talking. And I believe Vampire Lord and some of the older vampires were tribute monsters, but that was ostensibly what the living graveyard was meant to have synergy with. Okay, and we have one more, which again was meant to have synergy with old and outdated card design, and though I do believe the effect has changed slightly since Cimoooooooooo went over the effect in his video nearly 10 years ago, I think fundamentally this card still works basically the same now in what you're seeing in the text when compared to what he went over in his video. Also, he did say that the artwork for this card was pretty cool.
Next up is Union Unity. This card, aside from having cool artwork, is...
I just want to say, I know it's 7 years too late, but thank you, Cimoooooooooo, because I remember having a very specific vision for what what I wanted the artwork of this card to look like, and I remember struggling to find pre-existing artwork on the internet that fit kind of what I was thinking of in my head. And to one of the commenters under Cimoooooooo's video, yes, this card is meant to have Freezing Beast and Burning Beast in its artwork, and that's why I picked this specific artwork. So thank you to the random commenter that mentioned that under that video oh so many years ago, because you were right. So let me read the effect first, and then I'll go into kind of the intentions and philosophy behind it. It's a quick play spell card that says reveal one union monster from your hand that specifically names one or more monsters that it can be equipped to in its effect text. And if you do, special summon one of those specifically named monsters from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And if you do that, equip that revealed monster to the summoned monster. But the equipped monster cannot be special summoned this turn. I forgot how wordy Yu-Gi-Oh cards were, man, even the ones that I wrote. But it's wordy for a reason, and I'll go into that. If this card is in your graveyard because it was activated and resolved on the field without its effect or activation being negated, you can banish this card and one union monster from your graveyard, draw 2 cards. You can only use each effect of Union Unity once per turn. Okay, so that was a lot. So let me just explain, because no word included on this card is not extremely deliberate. So let's start with the first effect. Special summon a union from your deck that specifically names any number of monsters, and then equip this monster that you revealed from your hand to that monster, but basically lock it as equipped. I believe that commenter that I just mentioned a second ago was able to discern what this meant, which is in opposition to what Cimoooooooooo seemed to think that this card was meant for.
Pretty interesting, especially if you think in the context of ABC. If you have an A, B, or a C, for instance, you could summon an A from your deck and equip a B that's in your hand. That's pretty neat, and especially with ABC, like that you can basically get B from anywhere and get the piece that you're missing and have your Dragon Buster online for next turn. And
now, in fairness, I think the reason why Cimoooooooooo included this card in his slate of custom cards for that video was that he wanted to talk about the ABC union archetype, as at the time that I made this card and at the time that he made that video, ABCs were, I think, kind of on the downslope after they had been relevant for quite some time, and I remember those formats, especially because I remember ABC Dragon Buster being very frustrating to deal with based on the card pool that was available at the time. But that commenter was correct. This is meant to specifically help with those old hyper-specific equip union monsters that were released oh so long ago that even if they had been viable when they released, which they weren't, they would absolutely certainly not be viable nowadays. And though I do not follow the current metagame very well anymore, we know for a fact that the Oitsu, Koitsu, Doitsu Paper Plane Man cards would not be viable even if this card existed, but they'd at least be playable. You could throw them into a deck and it could actually function to some extent. Burning Beast, Freezing Beast, that's another one. I believe Union Rider and some other dragon monster would work with this card. The original XYZ Dragon Cannon parts, I think, also work with this card. If you can't tell, a lot of the old cards that I made were engineered specifically to fix these hyper-specific conditions within certain series of cards. And then the second effect is kind of meant to be the cherry on top of the proverbial sundae that this card gives you. Basically, if you're bold enough, crazy enough even, to run this card as well as any of the other monsters that it specifically requires in your deck, you kind of deserve to get some form of plus. think if you do the math, I think this ends up being a +1. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that. But I worded the activation requirements in such a way as to basically require that you activated it and successfully resolved it without negation on the field in order to get the draw. Now, based on my limited understanding of the current metagame, negation is so commonplace that this would probably never even get to activate that draw effect as a consequence of my restrictions, but I would not change any of that because that's really more so, I feel, a symptom of the general degeneration of Yu-Gi-Oh's competitive landscape than anything else. And I haven't showed off any unique or new custom cards that could not be otherwise found on the internet yet, and I will not show off this entire archetype because yes, I did make a series / archetype of cards out of the Disaster Envoy title of cards. If you want to see all of them, I don't believe they're all finished, but if you do for any reason want to see those, let me know. Show up in the like count and the comment section, and that includes you, Knack Knack. Send from your hand and or deck to the graveyard up to 3 Ukazi, min 1. Draw 1 card for each +1, then place 1 less than that many cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. Quick effect. You can banish this card and 1 or more Ukazi from your graveyard. Draw 1 card for each Ukazi banished this way. You can only use 1 effect of Daybreak of the Disaster Envoy per turn and only once that turn. So, yeah, I was trying to make an archetype centered around the old, outdated burn spell Ukazi. And I'm not going to check, but I'm pretty sure I also had a card that was built around using sparks. Like I said, I don't think this archetype is fully constructed. I don't think I finished my outdated burn spell archetype, which was called Of the Disaster Envoy. I believe that was the archetype name in full. But basically, the philosophy of this card in specific, if only this card, was you're playing some number of cards named Ukazi. Presumably the original Ukazi. Because cards in the deck do not have effects. Unless, for example, they are Red Eye's Metal Dragon, which I also did do support cards for. But basically, this archetype was engineered vaguely to say, there. It's okay. I know it sucks playing those old, outdated, random minor burn cards, but I won't go into any more detail on that, because that could very well be its own video. For the most part, I just wanted to go over the cards that Cimoooooooooo went over in that video almost a decade ago. He'll never see this video, I'm sure, but I was in college at the time that I tweeted those cards at you, Cimo, and that was a high point in whatever day it was that that video came out. I have screenshots saved somewhere, either on this computer or on my phone, of all of the comments that directly pertained to the cards of mine that you used in your video. And since I promised Knack Knack Prime that I would do another Yu-Gi-Oh video, and I have up until this point not made good on that promise, I figured I should at least attempt something to that end. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please follow the guidance of all of the icons down here in this section of the video that I went through the painstaking, arduous task of adding to the layout. I do have a more Godzilla-centric video idea that I do plan on recording sometime soon.
I do plan to finish someday, Kif.
Although, considering the fact that the sun is kind of in my eyes and coming through the window right now, I'm not going to probably record it at least for another few hours for me today. And so I would humbly request that you follow my lead and take it easy, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, guys, I will catch you on the flip side.
You know, I quit my job at that bakery.
Why?
Oh, I got sick of the dough and thought I'd go on the loaf. Oh!